What would you do if the person you made a childhood promise to appeared at your doorstep 24 years later as a homeless woman? When millionaire businessman Marcus Wellington hears those impossible words from a beggar outside his Manhattan office, his entire world stops. I'm the girl who promised to marry you 24 years ago. Could it really be her? The girl from that summer who changed everything? Or is this just another scheme in a city full of desperate people? What Marcus discovers will shake the foundation of everything he's built and force him to choose between the life he's created and the promise he never forgot. True love can wait a lifetime and still arrive on time. Show that you believe in this. Like this video and subscribe now so you don't miss any detail. The November wind cut through Fifth Avenue like a knife, sending dried leaves skittering across the sidewalk in front of Wellington Tower. Marcus Wellington adjusted his Tom Ford suit jacket as he stepped out of the black SUV, barely glancing at the usual collection of homeless people huddled near the building's entrance. New York City had taught him long ago to look past the suffering. It was the only way to survive with your sanity intact. Mr. Wellington, your 3 o'clock with the investors is confirmed, his assistant Rebecca said, matching his brisk pace toward the glass doors. Marcus nodded, his mind already running through the presentation numbers. The real estate deal with the Singapore consortium could net his company another $40 million. At 32, he'd built Wellington Properties from nothing into one of Manhattan's most aggressive development firms. The board meeting, the dinner with Senator Crawford, the charity gala on Saturday, his life was a precisely orchestrated symphony of power moves and calculated risks. Before continuing, if stories about impossible reunions and second chances captivate you, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't believe where this journey leads. Please, a voice said from somewhere to his left, just a moment of your time. Marcus kept walking. He heard these pleas 50 times a day. Marcus Wellington, the voice continued, stronger now. I'm the girl who promised to marry you 24 years ago. His foot caught on nothing and he stumbled. Rebecca grabbed his elbow, concerned. Sir, are you all right? Marcus turned slowly, his heart suddenly thundering in his chest. The woman stood near the building's corner, wrapped in a threadbare coat that had probably been donated from some church charity bin. Her face was weathered beyond her years, dirt smudged across her cheek, her dark hair tangled and unwashed. But her eyes, those eyes were the same startling green he remembered from that impossible summer. Sarah, the name came out as barely a whisper. You remember? She smiled, and for just a moment, he could see the 8-year-old girl who'd lived next door to his grandparents' house in Cedar Falls, Iowa. The girl who'd found him crying behind the barn after his parents' funeral. The girl who'd held his hand and promised that when they grew up, they'd get married and never be alone again. That's impossible, Marcus said, though his feet were already moving toward her. Rebecca called after him, but her voice seemed to come from very far away. Sarah's smile faltered. I knew you probably wouldn't recognize me. I've had a hard few years. Up close, he could see the toll life had taken. Her hands were raw and red, her nails broken. The coat hung on a frame that was far too thin, but there was something else too, a quiet dignity in the way she held herself, even as pedestrians hurried past, pointedly not looking at them. How did you find me? Marcus asked. I've always known where you were, Sarah said quietly. I've read every article about Wellington Properties, every interview. I watched you become everything you said you'd be. Then why now? Why like this? He gestured at her appearance, hating himself for the gesture even as he made it. Pain flickered across her face. Because I finally had no choice. Because I remembered that promise. And I hoped. She trailed off, wrapping her arms around herself against the cold. Marcus's mind raced. This had to be some kind of scam. People didn't just disappear for 24 years and show up homeless on Manhattan streets. Cedar Falls had been a lifetime ago, 2 weeks at his grandparents' house, the summer after his parents died, before his aunt and uncle took him to Boston. He'd been 8 years old. Sarah had been his only friend during those terrible weeks, the only person who hadn't looked at him with pity. Mr. Wellington, Rebecca's voice was firm now, her hand on his shoulder. Your meeting. He should walk away. Every instinct he'd developed in 12 years of cutthroat business dealings screamed at him to turn around and forget this ever happened. This woman, whoever she really was, represented chaos, unpredictability, weakness. But those eyes, God help him, those eyes. Cancel my 3 o'clock, Marcus heard himself say. Sir, the Singapore investors, reschedule it. He pulled out his wallet, extracted every bill inside, probably close to $800, and held it out to Sarah. "There's a cafe 2 blocks east. Mario's. Get yourself something to eat and clean up in their restroom. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. Sarah stared at the money, but didn't take. "I don't want your charity, Marcus." "Then what do you want?" She looked up at him, and he saw something in her expression that sent a chill down his spine. Not desperation, not manipulation, just a terrible, honest hope. "I want you to remember," she said softly. "I want you to remember the boy who promised to always be kind, who said he'd never forget where he came from, who swore he'd never become like the people who made him feel small." The words hit him like a physical blow. Marcus Wellington, who negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, who'd fired 23 people last quarter to improve profit margins, who'd crushed competitors without losing sleep, that Marcus Wellington took an involuntary step backward. What had happened to the promises they'd made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. 20 minutes, he repeated, his voice rough. Mario's cafe. Then he turned and walked into Wellington Tower, not looking back, even though every instinct screamed. At him to run, either toward her or away from her, he honestly couldn't tell which. Behind him, Sarah stood alone on the cold sidewalk, clutching $800 in cash, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, or if maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found her way home. Before I reveal what happened next, comment to be continued if you need to know how this ends. Let me see if you're really invested in this story, full of surprises. Mario's Cafe was a hole-in-the-wall, Italian place that Marcus had discovered during his first year in New York, back when he was living in a studio apartment in Queens and surviving on coffee and ambition. He hadn't been there in at least 5 years. His assistant usually had lunch delivered to his office, but the moment he walked through the door, the smell of espresso and fresh bread transported him back to simpler times. Sarah sat in the back corner booth, looking drastically different. She'd washed her face and hands, pulled her hair back into a neat ponytail. The coat was gone, revealing a worn but clean sweater underneath. She'd ordered nothing, he noticed, despite his instruction to eat. Marcus slid into the booth across from her, and Mario himself appeared immediately with 2 cappuccinos. "Mr. Wellington, Madonna, it's been too long, and for your lovely friend." He smiled warmly at Sarah, with none of the judgment Marcus had seen on the faces of passers-by. "Minestrone soup and the panini special," Marcus said. "Please." "I can order for myself," Sarah said quietly, but there was no real heat in it. Mario bustled away, and silence settled between them like fog. Marcus studied the woman across from him, trying to reconcile her with his memories of that Iowa summer. Sarah Mitchell, the farmer's daughter from the property next to his grandparents' place. They'd spent 2 weeks exploring fields and climbing trees, 2 lonely kids finding solace in each other. "Tell me," Marcus said finally. "Tell me everything, because right now this feels like an elaborate con, and I need to know why I'm sitting here instead of calling security." Sarah flinched but nodded. "Fair enough." She wrapped her hands around the cappuccino cup Mario had left, as if drawing warmth from it. "After that summer, my dad lost the farm, bank foreclosure. We moved to Des Moines, and he tried to find work, but..." She paused, staring into the coffee. "He started drinking. Mom left when I was 12, took my little brother, and moved to California. Didn't take me." Marcus felt something twist in his chest but kept his expression neutral. "Go on." "I dropped out of high school at 16 to work. Dad died when I was 19, liver failure. I had nothing, no skills, no family. I worked restaurants, retail, whatever I could find. Met a guy, thought he was different." Her laugh was bitter. "He wasn't. Turns out he was using our apartment to deal drugs. Police raid. I wasn't involved, but I was there. Got arrested. Spent 6 months in county." "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "Having a record makes it hard to find work," Sarah continued, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "I bounced around the Midwest for a few years. Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland. Jobs got harder to find. I got sick, pneumonia, and lost my apartment. Once you're on the streets, it's like quicksand. You just keep sinking." The soup and sandwich arrived. Sarah looked at the food with obvious hunger, but still didn't touch it. "Eat," Marcus said. "Please." She picked up the spoon with shaking hands and took a small sip of soup. Her eyes closed briefly in what looked like relief. "How did you end up in New York?" Marcus asked. "I came looking for you," Sarah said simply. 3 months ago. I'd hit rock bottom in Cleveland. Spent a night in a shelter where this woman told me I needed to stop waiting for life to save me and save myself. And I thought about you, about that promise we made. I know it sounds insane. We were children, it meant nothing. But it was the only good memory I had left. The only time someone promised not to abandon me and actually meant it, even if we were just kids. Marcus sat back, processing. So, you came to New York with nothing. I came with hope, Sarah corrected. Stupid, desperate hope. I thought maybe, I don't know what I thought, that you'd see me and remember. That maybe you'd help me find a job, or... She shook her head. It was foolish. I can see that now. You're Marcus. Wellington, you live in a different world. I stood outside your building for 3 weeks, she continued, trying to get the courage to approach you, watching you come and go. And every day I almost left, went back to Cleveland or Des Moines or anywhere. But then I'd remember your face that summer, how you cried when you talked about your parents, how you said you'd never let anyone feel alone like you felt. Was this the moment everything changed? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. Sarah, I was 8 years old. I know, she said. I know you don't owe me anything. I know this is crazy. But I also know that you used to be someone who cared, someone who understood what it felt like to lose everything. I still am that person, Marcus said. But even as the words left his mouth, he wondered if they were true. Are you? Sarah's green eyes locked onto his. Because from where I'm sitting, you walked right past me 3 weeks ago. Last Tuesday. The Tuesday before that. You've looked through me like I was invisible at least a dozen times. The truth of it stung. Marcus thought about his life. The penthouse apartment, the yacht club membership, the charity galas where he wrote checks and felt virtuous. When had he last actually seen another human being struggling? When had he last stopped? I'm sorry, he said, and meant it. Sarah took another sip of soup. I don't want your pity. I want to know if the boy I knew is still in there somewhere. If the Marcus who promised to always be kind still exists. I don't know, Marcus admitted. I've spent 24 years building walls, becoming successful, making sure I'd never be powerless or dependent on anyone again. And has it worked? Sarah asked. Are you happy? The question hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about his life, the endless meetings, the relationships that never went deeper than surface level because he never let anyone close. The nights alone in his penthouse, looking out at a city of 8 million people and feeling utterly isolated. I'm successful, he said finally. That's not what I asked. Marcus looked at this woman, this stranger who somehow knew him better than anyone in his current life. A dangerous idea was forming in his mind, reckless, impulsive, everything he'd trained himself not to be. What if I helped you, he said, really helped you? Not just money, a job, a place to stay until you get on your feet. Sarah's eyes widened. Marcus, I'm not asking... I know, he interrupted, but what if that boy you remember is still in there? What if I want to find out too? She stared at him, soup spoon halfway to her mouth. Why would you do that? Marcus leaned forward. Because maybe I'm tired of being Marcus Wellington, real estate mogul. Maybe I want to remember what it felt like to be Marcus, the scared kid who had one friend in the world, someone who kept a promise. This is insane, Sarah whispered. Probably, Marcus agreed. But I'm going to make you an offer. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., come to Wellington Tower. I'll have HR set you up with a position. Administrative work, filing, whatever you're comfortable with. Salary, benefits, the works. I'll arrange an apartment. I can't accept charity, Sarah said firmly. It's not charity. You'll work for it, every penny. But I'm giving you a chance. The same chance someone gave me when my uncle got me my first internship. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. I don't understand why. Because you reminded me of something I forgot, Marcus said. Because for the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw past the suit and the money. Because maybe we both need this. Sarah wiped her eyes with a paper napkin. What if I mess this up? What if I can't do it? Then you can't do it, Marcus said. But at least you'll fail from a position of having tried, not from giving up. She reached across the table, her rough, broken-nailed hand covering his. Thank you, she whispered. Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. Something he'd locked away years ago. Fear, hope, possibility. Don't thank me yet, he said. We haven't even started. Now tell me, do you think he should have helped her? Write yes or no in the comments. This is going to get interesting. The next morning, Marcus arrived at Wellington Tower at 6 a.m., 2 hours before Sarah was scheduled to appear. He'd barely slept, his mind racing, with everything that could go wrong. His board would think he'd lost his mind. His investors would question his judgment. Rebecca had already sent 3 emails with increasingly concerned subject lines after he'd told her yesterday to prepare an employment package. But for the first time in years, Marcus felt genuinely awake. He'd spent half the night researching transitional programs, talking to HR about creating a position that wouldn't raise eyebrows, and arranging for a corporate apartment. In one of Wellington Properties' buildings, the studio was small but clean, furnished and available immediately. Not charity, she'd pay rent from her salary, just at a deeply reduced rate that he'd quietly subsidize. At 8:45, Marcus stood by the lobby windows watching the street. Part of him wondered if she'd show. Maybe the reality of accepting help from a near stranger would seem too overwhelming in the morning light. Maybe she'd disappeared back into the city's anonymous masses. Then he saw her. Sarah walked up Fifth Avenue in the same worn clothes from yesterday, but she'd clearly made an effort. Her hair was neatly braided. She carried a plastic bag that probably contained her only possessions. She stopped outside the building, staring up at the gleaming tower with an expression of pure terror. Marcus pulled out his phone and texted Rebecca, "Send someone to bring her up, and be kind." He watched from his office as his assistant met Sarah in the lobby. Rebecca, to her credit, smiled warmly and guided Sarah to the elevators without a trace of the judgment she'd shown yesterday. Maybe he'd misjudged her, or maybe everyone deserved a chance to be better than their first reaction. When Sarah entered his office, she looked small and overwhelmed. The space was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, modern art worth more than most people's houses, furniture that cost more than she'd probably earned in a year of her former life. "Good morning," Marcus said, keeping his tone gentle. "Coffee?" "I don't want to be any trouble," Sarah said. "It's coffee, not a kidney. Sit." She perched on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk. Marcus poured 2 cups from his personal espresso machine and handed her one, then sat in the chair beside her instead of behind his desk. Small gesture, but he saw her shoulders relax slightly. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said. "HR has created a position, administrative, assistant in our community outreach division. You'll help coordinate our charitable giving, organize events, handle correspondence. Starting salary is $45,000, with benefits after 90 days. Sarah's hand trembled, coffee sloshing slightly. "That's too much. It's standard for the position. You'll earn every penny, trust me. The woman who runs that division, Patricia Chen, is tough but fair. I've told her you're a referral from a family friend, which is true enough. She doesn't know anything else, and neither does anyone else here. Your past is your business. Marcus, I don't know if I can do this. I haven't worked in an office. I don't have computer skills. Patricia will train you. We have programs for that. You'll learn." He pulled out a folder. "Here are the keys to apartment 4B in the Riverside building. It's small, but yours. First month is covered as a signing bonus. After that, rent is $800 a month, deducted from your paycheck." Sarah opened the folder, staring at the keys like they were made of gold. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll try, that's all I'm asking." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Marcus considered the question. He'd asked himself the same thing 100 times last night. "Because 24 years ago, a girl sat with me behind a barn while I cried. She didn't judge me, didn't try to fix me, just sat there and promised I wouldn't be alone. Maybe it's time I returned the favor. Could one act of kindness change 2 lives forever? Let me know what you think in the comments." Sarah wiped her eyes. "I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to disappoint you." "Probably," Marcus agreed. "I mess things up all the time, but we'll figure it out." The next 3 hours were a blur of paperwork, introductions, and systems setup. Patricia Chen turned out to be a 60-year-old former teacher with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She took one look at Sarah and seemed to understand without being told that this was someone who needed patience. "Come on, honey," Patricia said. "Let's get you settled. First rule, we all start somewhere. Second rule, there are no stupid questions. Third rule, we break for lunch at noon and I'm buying today." Sarah looked back at Marcus as Patricia led her away. He nodded encouragingly, and she managed a small, trembling smile. Rebecca appeared at his elbow. "Sir, the Singapore investors are here for the rescheduled meeting." Marcus tore his gaze away from Sarah's retreating figure. "Right, let's do this." The meeting went well. The investors signed. The deal was done, 40 million secured. But for the first time in his career, Marcus found his mind wandering. He kept thinking about Sarah sitting in an office somewhere in this building, probably terrified, probably wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. At 1 p.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He opened it to find a message from Sarah. "Patricia took me to lunch. Got me a salad. She's teaching me Excel. I haven't felt this normal in 3 years, thank you." Marcus stared at the message, something warm and unfamiliar spreading through his chest. He typed back, "You're doing great, one day at a time." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus watched Sarah's transformation from a distance. He'd instructed Patricia to send him weekly updates, not to spy, but to ensure Sarah had the support she needed. The reports were encouraging. Sarah was a quick learner despite her lack of experience. More importantly, she was reliable. She showed up early every day, stayed late when needed, asked questions when she didn't understand. Patricia's third-week report included a note that made Marcus smile. This girl has something special. She cares, really cares. When she called donors about our holiday charity drive, she actually listened to them. We got 3 major commitments from people who usually ignore our calls. She's a natural. Marcus saw Sarah occasionally in the building, passing in hallways, in the elevator once. They'd exchange brief nods, nothing more. He told her to keep their connection private, both to protect her from office gossip and to let her build her own reputation. But those brief moments stayed with him longer than they should. He noticed other changes too. Sarah had bought new clothes, nothing fancy, just professional outfits from discount stores. Her face had filled out slightly from regular meals. The haunted look in her eyes was fading, replaced by something that looked almost like hope. On Friday of the 3rd week, Patricia knocked on Marcus's door. "Mr. Wellington, do you have a moment?" "Of course. How's our new hire working out?" Patricia sat down, studying him with sharp eyes. "She's excellent, which is why I need to ask, what's really going on here?" Marcus kept his expression neutral. "I don't know what you mean. Marcus, I've worked for Wellington Properties for 8 years. I've never seen you personally recommend someone for a junior position, and I've definitely never seen you set up corporate housing as a signing bonus." He should have known Patricia would figure it out. She hadn't risen to head an entire division by being unobservant. "She's someone I knew a long time ago," Marcus admitted. "Someone who fell on hard times and needed a break, that's all." "Is it?" Patricia's tone was gentle but probing. "Because I've seen how you look at her in the hallways, and I've seen how she looks at you." Marcus felt heat rise to his face. "Patricia, I'm not judging," she interrupted, "but I am concerned. Not for her. She's doing beautifully. For you. Because whatever this is, it's personal. And personal can get complicated in a workplace." "Nothing inappropriate is happening," Marcus said firmly. "I believe you, but Marcus, that girl worships you. She talks about this opportunity like it's a miracle. And you're different since she arrived. Softer. More. Present. Just be careful. For both your sakes." After Patricia left, Marcus sat at his desk, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. She was right. Something had shifted in him. He found himself thinking about Sarah constantly, not in a romantic way exactly, but with a protectiveness that went beyond mere charity. He wanted her to succeed, needed her to succeed, and maybe, he was beginning to realize, he needed to succeed at being human again too. That evening, Marcus did something he never did. Left the office at 6 p.m. He found himself walking past the Riverside building, looking up at the windows, wondering which one was hers, wondering if she was settling in, if she felt safe. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Marcus?" Sarah's voice was small. "I'm sorry to bother you. Patricia gave me your number for emergencies, and I know this probably isn't really an emergency, but what's wrong?" Marcus felt his heart rate spike. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's good. Too good. Just, I needed to tell someone I got my first paycheck today. Direct deposit. I went to the ATM and saw the balance and just stood there crying. I have money. Real money that I earned. I bought groceries. Real groceries, not just whatever was cheapest. And I'm standing in this apartment with actual furniture. And I have a job where people treat me like I matter, and Her voice broke. "I just needed to say thank you. Really thank you. You gave me my life back." Marcus closed his eyes. Leaning against a building wall. "Sarah, you did this. You showed up. You worked hard. You earned it. We both know that's not entirely true." "It is true. I opened a door. You walked through it. That took courage." Silence on the line then. "Will you have dinner with me tomorrow night? Nothing fancy, just I'd like to cook for someone. Haven't done that in years. and you're the only person in this city I know." Marcus knew he should say no, knew this was blurring lines that should stay clear, but he heard himself say, "I'd like that. Text me the time." After they hung up, Marcus stood on the sidewalk as evening settled over the city. He was playing with fire, getting emotionally involved with someone who worked for his company, someone he'd rescued from homelessness, someone who carried 2 decades of his childhood promises. It was a disaster waiting to happen, but for the first time in years, Marcus Wellington felt genuinely alive, and he wasn't ready to give that up. Do you think this story will have a happy ending? Comment "It will work if you do," or "It will go wrong if you think it will fall apart." I want to see the odds. Marcus arrived at Sarah's apartment on Saturday evening, carrying a bottle of wine he'd agonized over for 20 minutes at the wine shop. Too expensive would seem like he was showing off. Too cheap would seem thoughtless. He'd finally settled on a mid-range Chianti that the clerk promised was perfect for pasta, because of course Sarah would make pasta. It was economical, comforting, and he remembered her mentioning that her grandmother had been Italian. She opened the door, wearing jeans and a simple green sweater that matched her eyes. The apartment smelled incredible: garlic, tomatoes, fresh basil. "Welcome to my palace," Sarah said with a self-deprecating smile. The studio was indeed small, but she'd made it warm. A small table was set by the window, with mismatched plates she'd probably found at a thrift store. Candles flickered in old wine bottles. "I know it's not much." "It's perfect," Marcus interrupted, meaning it. His penthouse was 3,000 square feet of designer minimalism. This felt like a home. Over dinner, incredible homemade fettuccine with a simple marinara sauce. They talked, really talked. Sarah told him about her week, the donors she'd spoken with, how Patricia had patiently taught her to use database software. Marcus found himself telling her about his own early days in New York, the struggles she'd never see in the Forbes profiles. "You lived in Queens?" Sarah asked, surprised. "In a studio. Smaller than this one," Marcus confirmed. "Cockroaches included at no extra charge. Worked 3 jobs while finishing my business degree at night. Slept maybe 4 hours a night for 2 years. What changed? I met a developer who took a chance on me. Let me help with a small project in Brooklyn. I found a property everyone else had overlooked. Saw potential. Made him $500,000 profit. He introduced me to investors and..." Marcus shrugged. "Suddenly I had capital, opportunities, the rest is history." "But you remember what it was like," Sarah said softly. "Being on the outside." "I try to." Marcus swirled his wine. "Though I'll admit it gets easier to forget when you're surrounded by luxury. You start to believe you earned everything through sheer merit, that anyone struggling just isn't working hard enough. Do you still believe that?" Marcus looked at her. This woman who'd worked hard all her life and ended up on the streets through circumstances beyond her control. "No, not anymore. Or maybe I never really did, and I just told myself that to feel better about having so much." They moved to the small couch after dinner, coffee replacing wine. The conversation drifted to lighter topics: movies, books, the absurdity of New York City pigeons. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed this much. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said during a comfortable silence. "That summer in Iowa, did you ever think about it? About me?" Marcus considered lying, but something about the quiet intimacy of the evening made dishonesty impossible. "Yes, especially in the early years. When things got hard, I'd remember those 2 weeks. How simple everything felt. How you didn't care that I was the orphan kid everyone pitied." "I cared," Sarah corrected. "I just didn't pity you. There's a difference." "I know. That's what made it special." Sarah pulled her knees too, her chest looking young despite everything she'd been through. "I thought about you all the time, created this whole fantasy in my head about how you'd come back, how we'd grow up, and..." She laughed, embarrassed. "God, this sounds so pathetic." "It doesn't," Marcus said. "We were kids clinging to hope. Nothing pathetic about that. When did you stop thinking about it? About me?" The question hung heavy. Marcus thought about his teenage years, college, building his company. "Honestly, I don't. I know if I ever completely stopped, but I buried it under layers of other things. Ambition, success, relationships that never went anywhere because I never let anyone really know me." "What happens when 2 people finally tell the truth? Share your thoughts below." Sarah turned to face him fully. "Why don't you let anyone know you?" "Because knowing someone means they can hurt you, leave you. Everyone I ever loved as a kid died or left. I decided it was safer to be alone." "But you're not alone," Sarah said. "You're surrounded by people all the time. That's not the same as connection. You know that better than anyone. She nodded slowly. When you're on the streets, you're surrounded by millions of people, and you're more alone than you can possibly imagine. Marcus felt a sudden urge to reach for her hand, but stopped himself. This was already complicated enough. Are you okay? Really? I know we set up the job and apartment, but how are you managing? Emotionally? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Some days I wake up terrified it's all a dream, that I'll blink and be back on that corner, cold and hungry. Other days I feel guilty. Guilty? I think about the people still out there, the ones I slept next to in shelters, the ones who shared their food when they had nothing. Why did I get saved and not them? You got yourself out, Marcus said firmly. You had the courage to ask for help. No, Sarah shook her head. I got lucky. I happened to know someone who became powerful. What about everyone else? What about the woman who slept next to me in Cleveland who has 3 kids in foster care? What about the veteran with PTSD who can't hold a job? They're not less deserving. They just don't have a childhood friend who became a millionaire. The truth of it hit Marcus hard. You're right, it's not fair. So what are we going to do about it? Marcus looked at her in surprise. Your company has a community outreach division, Sarah said, leaning forward with sudden intensity. But from what I've seen, it's mostly just writing checks to established charities. What if we did more? What if we created a program specifically for homeless people? Job training, transitional housing, real support, not just handouts. Sarah, that would take enormous resources. You have enormous resources, she interrupted, and I know the system. I know what actually helps and what just makes rich people feel good about themselves. Marcus, you gave me a chance. Why not give that chance to others? He stared at her, mind racing. The idea was radical. It would be expensive, complicated, potentially controversial with his board. It could fail spectacularly. It could also change lives. You really think this could work? Marcus asked. I think it's worth trying. I think... Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. I think maybe this is why we found each other again, not for romance or some fairy tale ending, but to actually do something meaningful. Marcus felt something click into place, a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced since his early days of building the company. We'd need a detailed plan, budget projections, someone to run the program who actually understands the population. Sarah met his eyes. I understand the population. You're already working full-time for Patricia. This could be bigger. Marcus, let me do this. Let me turn what happened to me into something that helps others. Please. He should consult his board, run financial models, spend months in analysis. But looking at Sarah's face, lit with passion and purpose, Marcus made a decision based purely on instinct. Okay, he said. Let's do it. Let's build something real. Sarah's face broke into a radiant smile, and before Marcus could process what was happening, she'd thrown her arms around him in a tight hug. He froze for a moment, then slowly returned the embrace. She smelled like vanilla and tomato sauce, and something indefinably her. When she pulled back, there were tears in her eyes. Thank you. You won't regret this. I better not, Marcus said lightly, trying to ignore the fact that his heart was racing. My board already thinks I'm crazy. They spent the next 2 hours sketching out ideas on a legal pad Sarah found. Transitional housing in Wellington Properties buildings, job training partnerships with local businesses, mental health support, childcare for parents trying to get back on their feet. The list grew and grew, fueled by coffee and shared vision. It was past midnight when Marcus finally stood to leave. I should go. We both need sleep if we're going to revolutionize corporate philanthropy. Sarah walked him to the door. Marcus, thank you for listening, for believing this could work. Thank you for reminding me why I started Wellington Properties in the first place. It wasn't just about making money, it was about building things that mattered. They stood in the doorway, suddenly awkward. The evening had shifted. Something between them deepened it in ways that felt both exciting and dangerous. Good night, Sarah, Marcus said softly. Good night. As Marcus rode the elevator down, he realized he was in serious trouble, because somewhere between that first shocked moment on Fifth Avenue and tonight's dinner, Sarah Mitchell had stopped being a charity case or a childhood memory. She was becoming the most important person in his life, and he had absolutely no idea what to do about that. Everyone who believes in true love, write I believe in the comments. I want to see our community speaking out here. 3 months later, Marcus stood in front of Wellington Properties Board of Directors, presenting the most personal pitch of his career. The conference room was silent as he clicked through slides detailing the proposed Second Chance Initiative, a comprehensive program for homeless individuals seeking employment and stability. "We're proposing an initial investment of $5 million, Marcus said, watching the board members' faces carefully. "This will cover transitional housing in 3 of our buildings, job training programs, and support services for 50 participants in year 1. Richard Carlson, the board's most conservative member, cleared his throat. "Marcus, we appreciate your passion for this project, but $5 million is substantial. What's the expected ROI? "The return on investment isn't measured in dollars," Marcus replied. "It's measured in lives changed, communities strengthened, and yes, eventually in employees trained to contribute to our company and others." "Eventually doesn't pay shareholders," Carlson said dryly. "No, but corporate responsibility attracts investors. Millennials and Gen Z want to work for companies that stand for something beyond profit. This program positions Wellington Properties as an industry leader in social innovation." The presentation continued for another hour. Marcus answered questions, addressed concerns, painted a vision of what the company could become. Finally, they called for a vote. The motion passed, barely. 8 votes in favor, 6 against. But it passed. Marcus found Sarah waiting in his office, pacing nervously. "Well, we're funded," Marcus said, and watched her face transform with joy. Oh my God. She actually jumped, then caught herself suddenly professional. "I mean, that's excellent news, Mr. Wellington," he laughed. "We're alone in my office. You can call me Marcus." "Right, sorry, this is really happening. We're really going to help people." "You're really going to help people," Marcus corrected. "I'm just signing the checks. You're going to run this program." Over the next 2 months, Sarah threw herself into the work with an intensity that amazed everyone. She interviewed potential participants, designed curriculum, negotiated with support service providers. She worked 12-hour days, often longer. Patricia had to force her to take breaks. Marcus watched from a distance, proud and increasingly concerned. Sarah was burning herself out, driven by something beyond professional dedication. He finally cornered her one evening when he found her still at the office at 9 p.m. "Go home," he said from her doorway. Sarah looked up from her laptop, exhausted. "I just need to finish these intake forms. They'll be there tomorrow." "Sarah, you're going to collapse." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're trying to save everyone because you couldn't save yourself fast enough." The words hit harder than he'd intended. Sarah's face crumpled and suddenly she was crying, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. Marcus crossed the room immediately, pulling her into his arms. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that." "No, you're right," Sarah choked out. "I keep thinking about Jessica, the woman I slept next to in Cleveland. She had 3 kids. She was so smart, so capable, and I got out and she's still there. I found her on Facebook last week. Still homeless, still fighting, and I'm here in this office with health insurance and a salary, and why her and not me? Because life isn't fair," Marcus said quietly, still holding her. "Because sometimes timing and luck matter as much as effort. But Sarah, you can't help anyone if you burn out. You have to take care of yourself too." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I just want to make a difference." "You already are. But this is a marathon, not a sprint. Could they actually change the system? Drop your thoughts in the comments." Sarah nodded, taking a shaky breath. "Okay, you're right. I'll go home. I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "I want to." In the car, they rode in comfortable silence. Over the past 5 months, they'd settled into an easy friendship, though Marcus couldn't deny the undercurrent of something more. He was careful to keep things professional at work, but moments like these, private, quiet, intimate, made it harder to remember why he was maintaining that distance. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said as they pulled up to her building. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping." "Okay. Why haven't you dated anyone? In all the time I've known you, both as kids and now, I've never seen you with anyone. Patricia mentioned you've turned down every setup she's tried." Marcus kept his hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. "Because I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of caring about someone and losing them. Of letting someone close and having them see that underneath the successful businessman, I'm still that terrified 8-year-old boy who lost everything." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Marcus, that little boy was brave. He survived something terrible and built an amazing life. You shouldn't be ashamed of him. I'm not ashamed, I'm just tired of being alone. But I don't know how to be anything else. She reached over and took his hand. Yes, you do. You've been not alone with me for months now. You're doing it. Right now. Marcus looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and it's probably inappropriate and definitely complicated, but I can't keep pretending. I know, she interrupted softly. I feel it too. His heart hammered. This is a terrible idea. You work for me, the power dynamic alone. I don't work for you. I work for Wellington Properties, and the program is nearly autonomous now. Marcus, I'm not some vulnerable person you rescued anymore. I'm building a career. I have my own life. We're equals now. Are we? Marcus asked. Because I still have all the money and power, and you have something you need more than money or power, Sarah finished. The ability to be vulnerable, to connect, to remember what matters. Marcus, you saved my life, but maybe I'm saving yours too. He stared at her, heart racing. Every logical part of his brain screamed that this was a mistake, but the part of him that had been lonely for 24 years, that had made a promise to an 8-year-old girl behind a barn, that part reached for her. The kiss was soft, tentative, full of question marks. When they broke apart, both were trembling. This is complicated, Marcus whispered. Everything worth having is complicated, Sarah replied. What if it doesn't work? What if I mess this up? Then we'll mess it up together. But Marcus, what if it does work? What if we finally get to keep that promise we made? He thought about the boy he'd been crying behind a barn, about the girl who'd sat with him and promised he wouldn't be alone, about two broken people finding each other again across 24 years and an ocean of pain. Okay, Marcus said. Okay, let's try. 6 months later, Marcus stood at the grand opening of the Second Chance Initiative's first permanent facility. 50 people had completed the program's first cohort. 37 had found full-time employment. 15 had reunited with family. All 50 had stable housing. Jessica, Sarah's friend from Cleveland, stood near the front, her 3 children beside her. Sarah had tracked her down, brought her to New York, gotten her into the program. Now Jessica worked in HR at a tech startup and had an apartment in Queens. I still can't believe this is real, Jessica said, hugging Sarah. You did this. We did this, Sarah corrected, looking at Marcus. Later, after the speeches and celebrations, Marcus and Sarah stood on the building's roof, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The city sparkled under an October sky full of possibility. Do you remember what you said to me that summer? Sarah asked. Behind your grandparents' barn? I said a lot of things. I was a pretty traumatized kid. You said you wanted to build something important when you grew up, something that would help people, not just make you rich. Marcus pulled her close. I forgot that for a while. But you remembered, Sarah said. We both remembered. We kept the promise. Which promise? We made several. Sarah smiled, tilting her face up to his. All of them. We promised not to be alone. We promised to be kind. We promised to take care of each other. And look at us now. Marcus kissed her, tasting salt from her happy tears. Around them the city hummed with 8 million stories. Struggles and triumphs, losses and connections, people trying to survive and trying to thrive. Somewhere in that vast urban landscape, a homeless person sat on a cold sidewalk, hoping for change. And thanks to Sarah's courage and Marcus's resources, there was now one more place they could turn for help, one more chance to rebuild, one more promise kept. I love you, Marcus said, the words feeling both terrifying and inevitable. I think I've loved you since I was 8 years old. I love you too, Sarah replied. And this time, I'm never letting go. They stood together as night fell over New York City. 2 people who'd lost everything and found each other. 2 childhood promises that had taken 24 years to fulfill. 2 lives transformed by one moment of recognition on a cold November morning. The boy who'd cried behind a barn had grown into a man who'd built an empire. The girl who'd comforted him had survived hell to become the woman who'd reminded him why empires mattered. Together, they'd turned a childhood promise into something real, something lasting, something that proved that sometimes, against all odds, hope wins, and love, real, complicated, hard-earned love, actually does conquer all. You've just witnessed a story of impossible odds and kept promises, but this is just the beginning. There's another story waiting for you right now, one that will shake you to your core and make you question everything you thought you knew. You won't believe what happens when destiny takes an unexpected turn. The video is already on your screen. Click it now. Don't wait. Some stories are too powerful to miss, and what you're about to discover will leave you speechless. Trust me, you need to see this next. Click now before it's too late.